Welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at 1861 and 1867. These are 3 to 6 player auction stock holding route building train games. In the 1800s, the age of steam is underway, and the Russian and Canadian governments are trying to bring their countries together and capitalize on the new technology. You'll be taking the role of investors. You will be investing in and starting minor companies, major companies, and avoiding nationalizing, trying to become the most successful investor. How do you become the most successful investor and win the game? By having the most net worth at the end of the game. Now that we know what the winning condition is, let's take a look at the components, setup, and how gameplay works in 1861 and 1867. Now let's look at the components. You have the main board or the map. This is double-sided. One side is for 1861 and the other side is for 1867. In the bottom right corner you have the round cycle track. Around the outside of your hexes you have the borders, along with off-board locations. On the map you have towns, which are black dots, cities, which are white dots. If you're playing 1861, you have reserved cities. There are treacherous areas on the board. These can be indicated by lines or blue hexes that have a money amount on the hex or the line. When laying track on this hex, you would pay that amount, or if it is a line, you would pay the amount when connecting it across the line. Hexes with a lock symbol and a number are locked until that phase. The off-board locations have spots where you can make connections. The market board, this is double-sided. One is columns and the other is grid. Keep in mind that the columns are easier to navigate. The movement key for each is located in the center of the market board. Below the key is the legend for the colors that are on the market board. So for pink, any company can start in that region. For orange, minor companies may start in that region. Outlined in blue, minor companies may convert here to major companies. And then the teal, major companies may start here. And then the black line is the minor value limit. And in the bottom right corner of the market board, you have the revenue track. This allows you to track the revenue per share. The train yard. The train yard has the phase track along the left and bottom of the train yard. This is based on the trains that are available. Once all the 2 trains run out, it would go to phase 3, and so on. Also indicated by the phase is the tiles that are available, the trains that are rusting, the max number of trains for each company, and then the minor company availabilities and mergers and operation. Then in the middle of the train yard is the operating round key. Your round tracker, this will track the round of the round cycle. Phase tracker, this will track your phase on the train yard. Priority deal marker, this will mark the first player in stock rounds. National Railway charters, this will be the charter for the National Railway. Across the top you will have station tokens. Some may be reserved for specific cities. And then on the left side you have a spot for trains. And then on the right side you have a spot for the treasury and loans. National Railway station tokens. These are to be placed on the charter and then used to mark on the map. Major companies. You have the major company charter. Across the top you have the name and symbol. Then you have spots for station markers. To the right of the station markers you have a spot for loans. And then on the bottom you have a spot for trains and treasury. And then on the right side you have a spot for the share certificates. For each of the major companies you have a stock token that would mark your stock price, a revenue tracker which would mark your per share revenue, and station tokens that would mark your service centers or supply centers. Major company share certificates. In each major company you have 120% or president's certificate and 10%. The minor companies. You have minor company charters. At the top you have the symbol and name, and then at the top right you have the home city. This is only in 1861. Then in the middle you have a spot for trains and treasury, and then on the right side you have a spot for loans. And at the very bottom you have nationalization indicators. For each minor company you have a stock token which would mark your stock price, a revenue tracker which would mark your per share revenue, and a station token which would mark your supply center. For each minor company, you also have one minor certificate that is worth 2 shares. It's 100% of the minor company, and it has a half pay indicator. Private company certificates. At the top you have the number and name. At the bottom you have the minimum bid, face value, revenue, and if there's any city bonus. City bonus tiles. These are used when a company absorbs a private company. Track tiles. These are double-sided, and when upgrading track tiles, you go from yellow to green to brown to gray. Train cards. At the top left you have the phase number, which is also the maximum number of supply centers that you can connect. The top right has the cost. The bottom left has the rust phase, where the trains will rust during that phase. And at the very bottom is the name. Loan tiles. You would get the money at the top, and then you would pay the interest at the bottom during each operation round until you pay it back. These will be placed on the charters. Number tokens, money, player aids, quick start manual, and then finally your rule book. Now let's take a look at the setup. We're going to be setting this up for a 3-player game, which takes 13 steps. Step 1, place the main map board. You're going to choose between 1861 and 1867, and then you'll place that map board face up in the middle of the play area. Step 2, place the stock market. You will choose a side of the stock market board and place it next to the map. For your first game, it is recommended that you use the column market side. Step 3, place the train yard. You'll place the train yard with the corresponding year, 1861 or 1867, next to the map. This is indicated by the background in the bank pool. Step 4, separate and place trains. You'll separate the trains by phase and place them next to the matching phase number on the train yard. The 2 plus 2 and 5 plus 5E will go under phase 8 trains. Step 5, place the round marker. You'll place the round marker on the stock round on the round cycle. Step 6, place the phase marker. You'll place the phase marker on 2 on the train yard. Step 7, separate and place tiles. You'll separate the track tiles by color and type and place them near the board. Track tiles are limited, and there is a diagram in the rulebook showing you what's available for which game you're playing. Step 8, place charters, share certificates, and tokens. Using the matching game side of your charters, you'll separate the charters into major, minor, and national. You'll place them in a stack near the board. Then you'll place these certificates next to the corresponding stack, major and minor. Then you'll place the stock tokens, revenue tokens, and station tokens for the corresponding major and minor companies next to their charters. And then for 1867, you would place a national station token on Toronto. Step 9, place a loan pool. You'll place the loan tokens in a pile next to the map. Step 10, place private companies. Using the matching game side, you'll place the private companies in ascending order next to the board. Step 11, place the bank. You'll create a bank of 15,000 and place it within reach of all the players. Step 12, get starting money. You'll get starting money based on the number of players. For a 3-player game, you'll get 420 each. For a 4-player game, you'll get 315. For a 5-player game, you'll get 252. And for a 6-player game, you'll get 210 each. Step 13, choose a starting player. Randomly choose a start player and give them the priority deal marker. Now let's take a look at the gameplay. A game consists of a number of round cycles until the end game is triggered. The end game is triggered when the bank breaks or the first 8 train is purchased. At the start of the game, all private companies are auctioned off. Starting with the priority deal going clockwise, they will be auctioned off 1 to 5. Starting with the first private company, the player with the priority deal marker will start the bidding, and then it would go clockwise. The starting bid is listed on the private company. Players may up the bid by a multiple of 5, or they can pass. If they pass, they are not allowed to bid again on that private company. If all the players pass right away, the price is lowered by 5 and the bidding would start again. The winning player would get the private company and they would pay the bank. Then the next player going clockwise would start the next company bidding. Then you would repeat this until all private companies are sold and the player to the left of the last winner would get the priority deal marker. Then we would start round cycles. A round cycle A round cycle consists of a stock round, where you buy and sell shares and start companies, operating round, where private companies pay out and others operate, merger round, this is in phases 3 through 7, where minor companies can combine to make majors, and then another operating round, and then a final merger round. Now let's look at each round in detail. A stock round. Players will invest their personal capital to buy and sell shares or to start companies. In priority deal order going clockwise, you may sell one or more major company shares, and then auction a minor company or buy a major company certificate. Keep in mind that you can pass, but once all players pass in a row, the round is over. To sell shares, you would get the current stock price per share. Then if the president of the company sold shares, you would move the stock value down one or left one in a column market. If a player overtakes the president in percentage owned, they would trade the 2 shares for the president's certificate. Then you place the sold shares in the bank pool area on the train yard, making sure that the bank doesn't have 50% of the company's shares. Keep in mind that private and minor companies cannot be sold, along with unoperative major companies. To auction a minor company, a player would choose a minor company to auction. The green minor companies are not available until phase 3. For 1861, you would have a reserved city spot on the map for each company. And the first minor company that can be auctioned off is Nikolaev. For 1867, you place the station token on an open city. The active player would start the auction. The minimum bid is 100, and all bids are upped by multiples of 5. You can raise or pass, and the highest bid wins. If you pass, you are out of the bidding. The money goes to the company's treasury, and the player gets the minor certificate and charter. Then they would place the stock token on the initial value. The initial value is half of the winning bid rounded down. They can only be placed in orange or pink value areas. Then they would place the revenue tracker on the track. To purchase shares, a share may be purchased from the bank pool. They would pay the current stock price to the bank and get the share. A share may be bought from the company. They would pay the company treasury the stock value and get the share. And then a player may purchase the president's share, which is starting a major company. This can take place starting in phase 4. You would place a station token in an unconnected city. If no unconnected cities exist, in 1861, you could not start it this way. In 1867, you could place it in a connected, unoccupied city, and if still none exist, then you cannot start one. You would choose an initial stock price, 70 to 200, placing the stock token. Then you would pay the company 2 times the price, get the charter, place that money in the treasury, and get the president's share. Keep in mind when buying shares, no more than 60% can be owned by a single player. You also want to check your certificate limits, which is based on the number of players. Also keep in mind that you cannot purchase a company's share if you sold that company's share in the same round. Then at the end of the stock round, you would give the priority deal marker to the left of the player taking the last action. You would adjust companies' values if they are sold out to the players. You would move them right or up if it is the grid market. If you cannot go up any more in the grid market, you would go right and down. Then we move to the operating round, where players will take actions for companies they control. The companies that operate start with private companies, and they pay revenue to owners. Then minor companies operate in descending stock price order. Then major companies operate in descending stock price order. And then in phases 4 through 7, the National Railway operates. There is at most 8 steps for operation for your minor and major companies. Step 1, redeem. These are for major companies only. A major company may buy back shares from the bank. Step 2, lay or upgrade track. For minor and major companies, they can lay a tile or upgrade a tile. When laying a tile or laying track, you would place a yellow tile on an unoccupied hex. You would pay the cost if there is a cost printed on the hex on the main board. To upgrade, you would place a tile of a higher rank, yellow to green, or green to brown, or brown to gray, making sure to check the phase that you are in for tile availability. And then optionally, the company can also lay a yellow tile for 20. You are allowed to take out a loan to do this. Keep in mind that you must preserve the original orientation when you are upgrading. If you're playing 1867, yellow triangles represent track connections that must be made. When laying or upgrading, you must place in a home hex, extend the railway, or increase city revenue on your route. Keep in mind that tiles are piece limited and listed in the rulebook. Phase 3 locks cannot be used until Phase 3. Make sure that you connect when you are using track to connect blue or off-board locations. If there is a cost on the hex, you would pay when placing. If there is cost on borders, you would pay when connecting. Step 3, place a station token. Once per operating round, major companies can place a station token on an unoccupied city spot. You would pay the token cost, 20 or 40 per hex, in connecting to another station. Keep in mind that you cannot place on reserved spots. Step 4, run trains. This is for minor and major companies, and this is for you to operate your company trains. Companies operate trains for revenue. Each train runs a route connecting revenue centers, like towns, cities, or off-board locations. The route must be continuous, unblocked, that includes the company's station token. You cannot reuse the same track, and the max number of revenue centers is on the train's number. You cannot skip cities or off-board locations, but you can skip town locations. You are only allowed to use a revenue center once per train. The revenue that the company earns is the total of the revenue centers and any bonuses. If the operating company owns a private company, you would check for the revenue bonus. There are route bonuses also when cities are on the same route. This is printed on the board. Step 5. Distribute earnings and adjust the stock price. The president would decide what to do with the revenue. They can full pay and pay their earnings to their stockholders. They can half pay and take 50% rounded down into their treasury and pay the remaining, or they can withhold. For major companies, you would divide the number by 10 and pay out to each share. For minor companies, you must half pay, and then you would adjust the stock price. For a minor company, you would move left if it didn't pay dividends, right if it did, and then flip it when you're done. For a major company, you would move it left if it didn't pay dividends, right if it paid dividends and was higher than the stock price, and it would stay the same if it paid dividends that was not as high as the stock price. Then you would flip it when you're done. Step 6, loans. You would pay interest. You would pay the interest located at the bottom of the loan tile. Then you would repay loans. If you have more than 50 in your treasury, you have to pay back your loans. A loan can be taken to build track or purchase trains, but they can't be gained for redeeming shares, placing stations, or purchasing private companies. Step 7, purchase trains. A company can purchase trains from the train yard or bank pool for the list price, or from another company for an agreed price. From the train yard, it must be the lowest, keeping in mind that the 2 plus 2 and 5 plus 5 are under the 8, and when the first train of a higher level is purchased, the phase moves up. When you move to Phase 4, 2 trains rust. When you move to Phase 6, 3 trains rust. And when you move to Phase 8, 4 trains rust. If a company or national railway does not own a train, it must purchase it. If it cannot afford to purchase a train, it must take out a loan. If it cannot afford a train with the max number of loans, then it is nationalized. The max number of loans for a minor company is 2, and major is 5. You also want to check the phase for the number of trains that a company can own. And then Step 8, purchase private companies. In Phase 3 through 5, you can purchase a private company by paying the player from 1 to the face value of the private company based on an agreement. In Phases 4 through 7, the National Railway would operate. For 1861, the National Railway would take 5 steps. Step 1 would be placing a station token in St. Petersburg. Step 2 is to run trains, with the priority deal marker player running the trains. Step 3, distribute their earnings, which is adding to their treasury. Step 4, loan operation. They would pay their interest and then pay loans. Step 5, they would purchase trains, buying as many as they can afford. And then if you're playing 1867 in Phases 4 through 7, the National Railway would get the lowest train available. Then you would advance the round marker. A merger round. In Phases 3 through 7, this is how you turn minor companies into majors. Each minor company in descending stock order can merge or convert to a major company. To convert from a minor into a major, it has to be in the blue zone on the stock market, which is 100 to 165. Then you would replace the stock market token with the major token, replace the charter, money, and loans, replace the tokens and get the president's share, and the minor company would go back to the box. To merge, two minor companies have to be connected. Minors cannot be blocked in their connection, and you can merge 2 to 10 minor companies with no more than 6 from one player. One company has to connect to all of the other companies, and the active player would choose a major company and place its stock token at the sum of the highest and lowest minor that was merged. This can be in the blue or teal zone, 100 to 200. All the money from the companies and loans go into the major company. Then you would start with the current company exchange with a minor certificate for 10% share. The first player with 20% would get the president's share. And then again, you can purchase stocks of the major company. Then going around, all of the players will be allowed to purchase one share. Then you would place 2 station tokens from the minor companies. All the minor companies are removed from play, and then you will double check your train limit. And then you would advance the round marker. There are cases when nationalization will occur, when a company cannot pay the cost of its loan interest, or they cannot afford one train, or they are trainless at the start of phase 4, 6, or 8, and then all minor companies will be nationalized in phase 8. When nationalizing occurs, it takes 5 steps. Step 1, pay off loans. Step 2, move the stock 1 to the left. Step 3, move the stock to the left for each loan. Step 4, players are paid per share and keeping in mind 2 shares for each minor certificate. Step 5, loans are discarded and all assets are placed in the National Railway, replacing station tokens. And when being nationalized, the majors can be restarted, but the minors cannot. And then rounds would continue until the first 8 train is purchased or the bank breaks. The bank breaks when it runs out of money. If the bank breaks during a stock round, you would complete that stock round and play one more operating round, and then the game would end. If the bank breaks during an operating round, you would complete that operating round, and then the game would end. When somebody purchases the first 8 train, if you're playing 1861, if the first 8 train is purchased in the first operating round of a set, you would finish that operating round and play 2 more operating rounds without a stock round, and then the game would end. If the first 8 train is purchased in the second operating round, you would finish that operating round and then conduct a stock round, and then 3 consecutive operating rounds, and then the game would end. If you're playing 1867, after the first 8 train is purchased, you would finish this set of operating rounds, conduct a stock round, and then play 3 consecutive operating rounds. And then the game would end. When the game ends, you would first move every company's share value 1 space to the left for each outstanding loan, and then you would combine your cash and total value of all of your shares into your net worth, and the player with the highest net worth is the best investor and wins 1861 or 1867.